Welcome to another video from the Daily Database Insights. Now, once you have your database, you need to factor in disaster recovery. And for you to be able to properly factor in disaster recovery or your backup and restore operations, you need to understand the recovery model concept of the database. Because recovery models are designed to control transaction log maintenance, and a recovery model is a database property that controls how a transaction is logged within the transaction log and how the database can be able to back up all the different transactions and also determine the recovery point objective of that particular database and all the transactions that occur within the database. We have three different types of recovery models. So if you can see on my screen, I have a simple recovery model, I have full recovery model, and then I have bulk logged recovery model. So if I run this query right here, select the name and then the recovery model description from sys.databases, you can see the different recovery models for these databases that we have today. So like for instance, we have PeopleSoft having full recovery model. In a full recovery model, this means that when you set up your database backup and restore operations, or pretty much backup for the maintenance of the log, it means you're going to require to schedule a specific log backup. And for the full recovery model, pretty much in this case, no work is lost in the event of a disaster up to the recovery point objective based on your transaction log schedule. So if you schedule your transaction logs to run every 15 minutes, then your recovery point objective is going to be 15 minutes, meaning you can lose data up within a 15-minute period. So that's your acceptable data loss. One thing is that with full recovery model, you can recover up to a specific point in time. So let's say you are restoring a database from a full backup and then you're reapplying transaction log backups. Then you can reapply a transaction log backup up to a specific point in time of that transaction log backup. So let me give you perspective. You take a full backup, or you have a schedule to run full backups, and then you have schedules to run transaction log backups. Your full backup runs at 9 p.m. and your transaction log backups runs every 15 minutes. So right now is about depending on the clock that you're looking at, but let's say there's a disaster that happens at 9:22 p.m. So if it happens at 9:22 p.m. and you realize this probably at 9:32 p.m., so it means that a transaction log backup already executed at 9:30. So the changes that occurred between the transaction log backup that ran at 9:15 and the one that ran at 9:30 are stored in one transaction log backup file. So point in time restoration, if you wanted to restore it back before 9:22, which could be 9:21, the transaction log backup that took place at 9:30, you can use that one, and you can specify to restore it up to 9:21, 59 seconds if you wanted to do that. So that is the advantage of running a full recovery model, and that is what you will be running in most of your critical production environment, so that you can ensure that you meet the business recovery point objective. A simple recovery model, in that case, it means that there is no log backups that are being executed, and of course you can automatically reclaim log space and of course ensure that your space requirements are met within your SQL Server. When you're running a simple recovery model, there are certain things like log shipping, always on, or database mirroring, immediate recovery without data loss, or a point in time restore, which is what I was explaining, that you cannot do when you are running a simple recovery model. And then what that means is all you can do here is a full backup. And when you do a full backup, pretty much whenever you're trying to restore a database, you will only be leveraging your full backup. So if you schedule your full backup on a daily basis, then your recovery point objective is about 24 hours. You stand the chance of losing about 24 hours of business, and that depends on whether that's acceptable or that's not acceptable. We have incidences where a 24-hour recovery point objective is acceptable and a simple recovery model is acceptable, based on the fact that that specific database is not as active or as not as chatty as any other critical database would be. So pretty much at this point you can only recover up to the end of a backup. You cannot recover a point in time. Even if you're restoring a full backup, you can specify, hey, I want to restore this full backup up to a few minutes before the end of this specific time. And also the bulk logged, which is the last recovery model. This is almost similar to full recovery. The only difference is that it reduces the log space usage by only logging the bulk operations on that particular transaction log. Of course, it requires log backups, and if the log is damaged or a bulk logged operation occurred since the most recent log backup, all the changes since the last log backup must be redone, otherwise no work is lost. Again, for this one, in as much as you have log backups, you can only recover up to the end of any backup, meaning if you are reapplying or redoing or restoring a database, and you are restoring a database up to the last transaction log backup, you can't restore it up to a point in time. So just a quick demo here. If you're seeing my screen, this is PeopleSoft database. Currently it's at full recovery model. I'm gonna change it to simple, and that is this statement to change it to simple. And then if we run this script statement to look at the recovery models, you can see that it's now simple. And then of course I can change it back to full recovery model. The other option to change it back to full recovery model is to right click it, go to the properties, wait for the properties window to launch, which sometimes it takes time based on your SQL Server Management Studio and the resources that you have. And then you'll come to the options section, and then you will be able to switch it to full recovery model. In fact, let's switch it to bulk logged recovery model. Now if we run the query, the SMS is not responding. Okay, there it is. Now if we run this, the PeopleSoft database is now bulk logged recovery model. There you have it. If you know anybody else who wants to understand more about recovery models, you must show them this video. And if they are still having more questions, ask them to reach out. I can point them in the right direction. If you have more questions about this, leave it at the comments. I will be able to reach out as soon as I can. Oh, the other thing about these recovery models, as you continue interacting with them, you will see how you can absolutely use them or leverage them if you wanted to shrink a database and stuff like that. Like I said, recovery model helps with space management. You will be able to make make a determination on when to use them. But for the most part, if you're running in production, you shouldn't really apply those strategies. But yeah, that's it. Have a good night.